Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, that high-stakes meeting at the White House. President Trump, President Zelenskyy, and the leaders of Europe try to find a path to peace in Ukraine. This time, Zelenskyy receiving a warm reception from President Trump. President Zelenskyy hand-delivering a letter from his wife for First Lady Melania Trump. European leaders promising to work for peace and support Ukraine. The meeting's taking place just hours after a deadly Russian strike on a residential building. Ukrainian officials confirming that a 1.5-year-old was among those killed.
I'm in paneling Kyiv as Europe, Ukraine and the United States try to apply pressure on Vladimir Putin to end the war. Russia continues to bomb.
Hurricane Erin picking up steam, the massive hurricane storm triggering states of emergency, high surf advisories, and fears of what waves as high as 20 feet tall could do along the East Coast.
I'm Victor Oquendo in the Outer Banks in North Carolina, where this community is preparing for flooding and those high waves. We'll have all the details coming up.
The plea deal for the so-called Ketamine Queen in connection with Matthew Perry's deadly overdose. The battle lines are drawn. More than 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants defy an order to return to work. Tonight, that nation's largest airline remains at a standstill, impacting hundreds of thousands of travelers and many flights to and from Canada from the U.S. And look up to the sky. Tonight, the Northern Lights may be visible where you live. Spike Lee's newest project is now in theaters. We hear from the film legend himself on what it was like teaming up with Denzel Washington and much more.
It's a blessing, and Denzel believes in me. He trusts me, and it's mutual. And we've done the work over several decades.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Juju Chang. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We begin with that high-stakes meeting at the White House. Tonight, Ukraine's President Zelenskyy saying he is on board with Russia's suggestion for a one-on-one meeting between the two leaders who've been at war for more than 3 years now. Zelenskyy saying a date has not been set yet. That news coming after President Trump confirmed earlier he's already spoken to President Vladimir Putin to try and arrange a meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy, a location not yet determined. It would all be a major breakthrough after President Trump welcomed Ukraine's President Zelenskyy to the Oval Office today, alongside a sweeping delegation of European leaders. Today's meeting comes just days after President Trump's summit in Alaska with Russia's Vladimir Putin, a summit Zelenskyy was not invited to. The Ukrainian leader called today's sit-down really good, despite President Trump backing down on his demands for a ceasefire, saying it's not needed. But just hours before today's peace talk got underway, Russia unleashed more deadly drone attacks targeting civilians. We're bringing you team coverage on all fronts, what today's meeting really means, and if an end to the war is really in sight. But first, we turn to ABC's senior political correspondent Rachel Scott, who leads us off from the White House tonight.
Tonight at the White House, an extraordinary scene of diplomacy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and some of Europe's top leaders who had raced to Washington to back him up, meeting with President Trump in an effort to stop the war. From Trump, a warm welcome. Appearing pleased, Zelenskyy was wearing a suit this time.
President Trump, sir, your message to the people of Ukraine as world leaders gather here today.
In the Oval Office, both men seeming determined to avoid a repeat of their explosive clash 6 months ago.
Thanks so much, Mr. President. If I can, first of all, thank you for invitation and thank you very much for your efforts. Personal efforts to stop killings and stop this war. Thank you.
President Trump hoping today's meeting will lead to a trilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
Zelenskyy insisting on security guarantees in case Russia invades again.
Security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
Trump making this commitment.
We're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long term. This is very long term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again.
Pledging American support.
When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. but we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
But on the question of an immediate ceasefire, the president unmoved. Heading to meet with Putin in Alaska, he called it a must.
I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today.
But Putin said no, and Trump backed down. Today, European leaders trying to change his mind. President Emmanuel Macron of France.
To ask for a truce or a ceasefire, at least to stop the killings, as we discussed, is a necessity. And we all support this idea.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz.
I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that and let's try to put pressure on Russia.
Trump unconvinced.
I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting.
The president confident Putin wants a deal. Earlier, Live Mike picking up this conversation between Trump and France's Macron.
I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand? I think as crazy as it sounds.
The president telling Zelenskyy and the allies he would soon call Putin to fill him in on the day's talks and discuss next steps.
Let's bring in Rachel Scott at the White House. Now, Rachel, you've learned that call between President Trump and Vladimir Putin has taken place. What can you report?
Well, Juju, the president posting on social media that he did speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin and talked about arrangements for a meeting. The president saying that the first meeting that would take place would be between Putin and President Zelenskyy, and then that would be followed by another meeting that then President Trump would join. But there's still a lot of questions on when and where these meetings would take place. And of course, the big overarching question is whether these two leaders, Putin and Zelenskyy, can make an agreement for lasting peace, Juju.
Rachel Scott, the high-stakes diplomacy continues. Thank you. And for more on all of this, we're joined now by former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Ivo Dalgard. Ambassador Dalgard, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
Let's start with President Trump. He wrote on social media late today that he will arrange a meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy before there is a trilateral meeting between him and the two leaders. In your experience, could this meeting between Zelenskyy and Putin really happen? And if so, what kinds of conditions would need to be in place beforehand?
Yeah, count me skeptical on that. We already have seen statements from the Russians themselves to confirming that the call took place and making clear that while they're interested in raising the level of engagement between Russian and Ukrainian negotiators, they are silent on the question of the president's meeting. And indeed, the Russians have been sending very low-level people to the discussions that have been going on now for a matter of months in Istanbul. And I think what the Russians have agreed to is not a meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy, but a meeting between Ukrainian and Russian officials at a slightly higher level than was the case today. So in many ways, the president is claiming more here, I think, than is likely to be the case.
And yet in D.C., we saw a remarkable diplomatic show of force today with those European leaders and the NATO Secretary General accompanying Zelenskyy at the White House. What are your thoughts on this meeting happening so soon after the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska?
Well, I think President Zelenskyy and all European leaders were alarmed by what had happened in Alaska. They believed that the president was going to Alaska. They had talked to him the Wednesday before the meeting on Friday with him. He was going to press Putin for a ceasefire. You played the clip earlier that was what he was going to do, and he wouldn't be happy if he didn't get it. Now, of course, the president's claiming that he never won ceasefires, that ceasefires don't work. In other words, Putin has changed his mind. They wanted to have an opportunity to go back and say, no, Mr. President, we need a ceasefire, number one. And number two is we need real security guarantees. And number three is we can't have territorial swaps or any territorial changes that recognize the possibility of borders being changed by force. And so they came not just to back up Zelenskyy, which I think is one reason, but the main reason is to back up the president and say, Mr. President, you need to decide, are you going to be with Putin or are you going to be with us? Because we know where we stand, but we're getting a little worried about where you're standing.
And yet, in one of your latest columns, you called that summit in Alaska a disaster. Do you see anything different and anything being achieved at this particular meeting?
We'll have to see on the security assurances. That is one of the issues that the president raised. That is something new. I have my doubts. The president himself has raised doubts about his commitment to NATO, Article 5, the very organization on which we would rely. So I have my doubts, but that is a positive. The fact that the meeting took place is a positive. But I do think that when we look back a few days from now to what has been accomplished after all these meetings and everything is said and done, we're pretty much where we were all along. We have a war going on. The Russians are fighting, and the Ukrainians are defending themselves.
Thanks so much for your insights. Former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Ivo Dalgard, thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure.
As President Zelenskyy was at the White House talking about how to end Russia's war on Ukraine, President Putin showed no signs of slowing down by carrying out deadly drone attacks hours ahead of that meeting. Here's ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell in Kyiv tonight.
This is why Ukraine and European leaders are pushing for security guarantees against Russia tonight. President Trump saying Vladimir Putin wants peace, but this was Russia's deadly message ahead of that high-stakes meeting. Drone and missile attacks on major Ukrainian cities, killing at least 10 people and wounding dozens more. 5 drones striking this one residential complex far away from the battlefield in Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv. It's become a grim routine. Emergency crews clawing through rubble, searching for survivors. At least 7 people killed, an entire family among the dead, including their 1-year-old daughter, Mia. She and her family lived on the top floor of the building. Their neighbor Hannah saying, "I saw the little one taking her first steps right in front of my windows. They were a beautiful family." Trump and European leaders discussing NATO-style security guarantees, potentially protecting Ukraine against further Russian attacks. But Russia's foreign ministry spokesperson calling any NATO contingent in Ukraine unacceptable. And despite all the talk of peace, tonight there is no ceasefire, with Russia's relentless attacks continuing.
And Ian Pannell joins us tonight. Ian, what's the prevailing sentiment there in Ukraine tonight after the meeting?
Juju, I think Ukrainians feel they've seen a lot of false dawns before. It's hope, yes, but it's tempered by experience. You only have to look at what happened today. I mean, Russia, of course, knew that this high-stakes meeting was going to be taking place at the White House. You're going to see President Zelenskyy, President Trump, and all those European leaders, the head of NATO, the head of the European Commission, all gathered there. It didn't stop Russia from attacking. We saw that devastating strike in Kharkiv. There were strikes elsewhere in Zaporizhia, in Sumy region. And even tonight, while they're still meeting, more strikes have been taking place across Ukraine. So yes, people want to believe that this is the beginning of the end, but they'll also believe it when they see it. And here's why they're so cautious. Because they've been given promises before. They've been given security assurances before. They've been told that the United States and the United Kingdom would back up those security assurances, and it ended up being worthless. So they're going to have to wait and see if the guns fall silent, see if they've got meaningful security guarantees, and then they've got to get over that difficult hurdle of deciding about any potential land deal. So I think people feel it's a long way off, but they will rest much easier knowing at least progress is being made. Juju.
The bloodshed continues. Ian Pannell, thank you. Now let's bring in ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy. Mick, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Juju.
Well, first off, what's your biggest takeaway after today's White House meeting between Presidents Trump and Zelenskyy?
Well, I think it was clear that our allies, and certainly President Zelenskyy, are focused on this Article 5 type security assurances. For everything that Ian just said, they've been burned in the past. So if they're going to go to their people and ask for some kind of land concession, which they would have to vote on, they're going to want ironclad assurances that Russia just simply won't wait for 2 years, reorganize and rebuild their army and then attack again. And that would be, I think, the coalition of the willing, as they call them, which includes a lot of the leaders around that table, being willing not only to give those assurances, but deploy a multinational force into Ukraine to ensure that Russia does not attack again, and perhaps the U.S. being willing to back that multinational force up with our air power, with our intelligence support, so that this is a full effort that Ukraine can be confident in when it goes to moving toward these territorial swaps, if you will, as President Trump calls them, to be able to sell it to the Ukrainian people, quite frankly.
And yet the issue of the ceasefire before negotiations is obviously a point of contention. How do you see that being ironed out?
Yes, and Chancellor Merz brought that up specifically today. I think they probably all did. The issue and the concern is if President Putin doesn't agree to a ceasefire and the fighting continues and they continue to take, although incrementally, territory and terrorize Ukrainian civilians, this whole negotiation process could be a ploy. It could be simply a stalling effort by the Russians to continue the fight, looking like they actually want to an agreement when they do not. So that's why the ceasefire is so important to our allies and was to the U.S. all the way up until the summit in Alaska. So I think they're going to keep pushing for that. And the only other way to get there is to start imposing serious consequences on Russia if they don't agree to a peace agreement all out or a ceasefire. And that would likely include secondary sanctions.
And of course, the biggest divide is about territory. And President Trump also brought up the need to discuss the possible exchanges of territory. You've worked for this president in his first administration. What can you tell us about how that might play out?
Well, I think it's important to point out that President Trump does look at a lot of these negotiations as a businessman would, because that's what he was. So in all business negotiations, there's concessions on both sides. That's how you negotiate. There's compromise. So I think that's what he's pushing for. There is a model. Finland did give up a portion of its territory, I think about 10%, to the Soviet Union for essentially a promise that they would not be invaded. And that was backed up by the NATO countries until they joined NATO, and they joined NATO because of this invasion into Ukraine. So I think there's a lot that's to this. That's just why so many countries are pushing for ceasefire, because even if Russia is genuine in their desire to negotiate, it's still going to take many weeks, if not months, to get to through all the issues they have to discuss.
Mick Mulroy, defense analyst, so grateful for your perspective tonight. Thanks. We have breaking news at this hour. There are reports of what appears to be an explosion on a container ship near the Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland. It was captured on a live YouTube feed. Though the ship appears to be moving again, the Maryland Department of Emergency Management says they are aware of the fire near the Baltimore harbor and they are monitoring. So far, there are no reports of injuries or property damage beyond the ship. Of course, the historic Francis Scott Key Bridge, as you may recall, suffered a near total collapse back in March of last year when it was hit by a cargo ship, sending cars and people into the water. 6 construction workers were killed. Hurricane Erin is growing in size as it moves along the U.S. East Coast. It's already leading to states of emergencies in the Carolinas, and evacuations are underway in some areas. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is tracking it all, but we're going to begin with Victor Kenda, who's in the Outer Banks tonight. Victor.
Tonight, after battering the Caribbean, a state of emergency in North Carolina. Coastal areas bracing for up to 20-foot waves as massive Hurricane Erin gained strength. Mandatory evacuation orders for the Outer Banks. Here in Rodanthe, officials are urging everyone to evacuate. The main highway could flood or get washed out entirely, and they're also worried about these homes that are not protected by a dune and could get pummeled by the surf. This video shows what could happen. This home left floating in the surf after Hurricane Ernesto slammed the area last August. Erin not expected to make landfall in the U.S., but as it rapidly intensified over the weekend, a glancing blow was enough to hammer St. Kitts and the Virgin Islands. And tens of thousands in Puerto Rico lost power. Hurricane hunters piercing the monster storm's eye wall, and those 160-mile-an-hour winds, the middle of the eye, a stunning sight. Now Erin, some 600 miles across, preparing to turn north, hugging the East Coast. Life-threatening rip currents from Florida to Maine. Lifeguards racing into the water in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. Officials say more than 50 people were rescued just today. Juju, people in the Outer Banks are bracing for a rough few days, especially here in Rodanthe. Officials tell me these homes are very vulnerable. 11 of them have collapsed in the past. They are urging everyone to follow those evacuation orders. Juju.
So let's get right to ABC's chief meteorologist, Ginger Z, who's tracking Hurricane Erin. Ginger.
Yes, Hurricane Erin is moving northwest, and we need it to kind of move to the north to follow along the track that would keep it away from the coast. And that's what's anticipated here. We do have some new watches and advisories in place, and so that's what I want to bring you to first. The Outer Banks has now a storm surge watch with up to 4 feet of surge. So that's coastal flooding, kind of that piling of water, and tropical storm force watch, because right now the tropical storm force winds extend more than 230 miles outside the center. As tropical systems move north, Juju, we do end up seeing them growing, and so we will see that broadening, and that's why we end up with the Outer Banks with tropical storm force winds possible. Either way, it's late Wednesday through early Thursday when it gets closest, but people keep asking, how do we know it's going to turn away? Well, the ridge, the high pressure system to the east, is weakening. That'll open up a little alley, but that stationary front is also going to help to transition it to the north and east. And that's why that path still takes it as a major hurricane closing in on the Carolina coast and then turns it to the northeast. It's going to be strong all the way out there. And that's a big reason why this bulldozer of a storm will be pushing water and why the biggest impact is out in the ocean. So let's talk. Those rip currents will be possible from Maine all the way down through Massachusetts, Virginia, Delaware, and into Florida, but it's all about the waves because those will be even more dangerous. We're talking about some of the 6 foot to 8 foot waves in South Carolina, 8 to 15 foot waves in coastal North Carolina, piling up. Especially when you have high tide, that combo is going to be ugly. On Thursday, especially New Jersey, along the shore, right up through even Nantucket, we're going to be seeing big waves as this thing pulls away by the end of the week. Juju.
Dangerous waves to be sure. Ginger Z, thank you. And we turn now to the airline strike grounding hundreds of flights across North America. 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants defied a second order demanding they return to work. 130,000 passengers have been stranded each day since the strike started. ABC's Gio Benitez has more.
Tonight, 10,000 flight attendants on strike grounding a major North American airline. Earlier today, Air Canada saying the Canada Industrial Relations Board has declared the strike unlawful, ordering their flight attendants to get back on the job. But the Canadian Union of Public Employees doubling down on their demands for better pay.
If it means folks like me going to jail, then so be it. If it means our union being fined, then so be it. We're looking for a solution here.
Air Canada forced to cancel hundreds of flights.
We are harming our customers. And over 500,000 to date.
Travelers frustrated.
They said that we have canceled all our flights.
Canadian officials say the country, already hit by President Trump's tariffs, cannot afford to take risks with the economy.
In a year where Canadian businesses and families have faced too much disruption and uncertainty, they shouldn't have to shoulder another blow.
And Juju, Air Canada says it is providing customers with a full refund, travel credit, or rebooking them on another airline. All flights will be canceled until at least tomorrow afternoon. Juju.
Our thanks to Gio Benitez. The number of federal troops in D.C. are expected to soar after 6 Republican states announced they are sending members of their National Guards to the Capitol. More than 800 troops are stationed in D.C. after President Trump's takeover of the city's police department. Earlier tonight, Louisiana became the 6th GOP-led state to pledge to send additional troops to the city at the request of the president. The president has claimed crime is, quote, out of control in D.C., even though crime recently hit a 30-year low. The drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen has agreed to plead guilty to charges connected to the death of actor Matthew Perry. Prosecutors say she illegally sold him the drugs, leading to his fatal overdose. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
Nearly 2 years after the fatal overdose of Friends star Matthew Perry, the so-called Ketamine Queen is now expected to plead guilty for supplying him with the dose that ultimately killed him. According to court documents, accused drug dealer Jasveen Sangha offered Perry a sample of ketamine through a friend, and within weeks, 50 vials would follow. The actor had been open about his longtime struggle with addiction, speaking with our Diane Sawyer a year before his death.
Addiction, the big terrible thing, is far too powerful for anyone to defeat alone. But together, one day at a time, we can beat it down.
Yeah.
your disease is just outside, just doing one-arm push-ups, just waiting for you, waiting to get you alone.
Court documents show after Perry's death, Sangha tried to destroy evidence of her involvement, texting their mutual friend, "Delete all our messages." Sangha is the fifth and final person charged in Perry's overdose, all of them pleading guilty.
In the end, these defendants were more interested in profiting off Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being.
Trevor Alt, thank you. Tonight, authorities are investigating the deadly shooting of 2 police officers in Utah as they were responding to a domestic disturbance call. The gunmen opened fire moments after they arrived. ABC's Erin has the latest.
Tonight, 2 Utah police officers are dead and another wounded, gunned down responding to a domestic disturbance call, immediately taking fire.
We got 2 officers down.
The terror evident in police radio traffic.
Shots fired, I've been hit.
The first officer arrived last night at a home in Tremonton, north of Salt Lake City. Right away, officials say 33-year-old Ryan Bate emerged with a gun.
Upon arrival, they immediately began taking fire.
The first officer shot and killed. A second officer responding to assist, also fatally shot.
Still shooting.
Copy, still shooting.
Bate then allegedly fired into a sheriff's deputy's vehicle, injuring him and his police service dog.
2 officers down in the intersection, not moving. I'm hit.
Authorities say bystanders eventually convinced the suspect to put down his weapon, and he was taken into custody. Bate booked on 2 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of assault. And tonight, Sergeant Lee Sorensen and Officer Eric Estrada remembered as heroes.
Erin Katursky reporting there. And coming up, a mountain lion strolls through the family's front door. We'll show you what happened next. Plus, the currently tumultuous trade relationship between the United States and Canada is having a ripple effect, causing animosity with the residents to our north. And Steve Osunsanmi reports they are fighting back.
That would be nice for the economy and the country, but I still personally won't go over there. No, not as long as he's in power. No. I'll keep my money in Canada.
And as the death toll reportedly rises in the war in Gaza, Israelis are now joining the calls for an end to the fighting. Turning now to the war in Gaza. Israel plans to seize control of Gaza City. It comes amid some of the largest protests we've seen in Israel since the war began. Which brings us to tonight's By the Numbers, where we take a closer look at the ongoing conflict. Roughly 500,000 people rallied in Hostage Square and surrounding areas in Tel Aviv Sunday. Israelis are protesting, calling for an end to the war, which broke out 22 months ago on October 7th, 2023, when Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel. Protesters are also demanding the release of 50 remaining hostages being held by Hamas. It's believed that about 20 of them are still alive. Over the past 24 hours, Gaza's health ministry says 60 people have died at hospitals across the Gaza Strip. That brings the Palestinian death toll to just over 62,000. And as global concern over the hunger crisis intensifies, the ministry says 263 Palestinians have died from malnutrition and hunger. 112 of them were children. Joining us now is ABC's Marcus Moore, who has been following the massive protests. Marcus, what's been the reaction from Prime Minister Netanyahu to calls for ceasefire from his own people?
Well, hi, Juju. Prime Minister Netanyahu has remained defiant, saying over the weekend, quote, those who are calling for an end to the war today without defeating Hamas are not only hardening Hamas's stance and pushing off the release of our hostages, they are also ensuring that the horrors of October 7th will recur and our sons and daughters will need to fight in an endless war. That's one of the things that Prime Minister Netanyahu said over the weekend. And those comments come as the IDF prepares for that expanded military operation in Gaza City. And this is something that Netanyahu has said is necessary to defeat Hamas and also secure the release of the hostages. But what we've seen, Juju, from those protesting, the relatives of those still being held hostage, they believe that a negotiated release is the best and only real option for their loved ones.
And yet, Marcus, those protesting for the end of the war are seeing those glimpses over the weeks of just how dangerous it can be for families trying to get food in Gaza. Tell us about what you've seen.
Yeah, Juju, we have new pictures that really capture the desperation, this desperation that's driven by hunger in Gaza, where on a daily basis, people are stopping aid trucks and trying to get the aid off of those trucks that are headed to the aid distribution sites. But before they even get there, they encounter thousands of people who are hungry. And we've seen video of people ducking for cover in the midst of these events unfolding as shots ring out. There's also other moments where people are on top of the trucks as they are driving past. Really, Juju, it is the horror that so many are living through right now in Gaza, and one of the reasons so many, including aid groups and world leaders, are calling for a ceasefire immediately. Juju.
Horrific images. Thank you so much for the important reporting, Marcus Moore, as always. And I know you'll have more coming up on Prime tomorrow night as well. Coming up here tonight, the movement against America amid the ongoing trade war. ABC takes you across the Canadian border for a first-hand look at the rallying cry against the red, white, and blue, and the real impact it's having on America's small border towns. Plus, the FDA warning about a certain kind of sunscreen that people could mistake for food. And welcome back. It's been a tumultuous few months of trading relationships with our ally to the north, Canada. A new tariff took effect earlier this month that has caused some concern with our biggest trading partner. The phrase elbows up, as in hockey speak for fight back, has grown popular in Canada. So what's being done specifically to fight back? Senior national correspondent Steve Osunsami traveled to our northern border to see firsthand.
While a number of nations have made last-minute trade deals before the president's deadlines to the world, some of them are refusing to bend to America. And one of them in the cold north is Canada, usually one of our warmest neighbors and our second-largest trading partner.
It is clear that we cannot count or fully rely on what has been our most valued trading relationship for our prosperity.
So for the unforeseeable future, some of their products sold to the U.S. will have to suffer the new 35% tariff, the price for not giving in. Many Canadians are now mad at America. When the trade war broke out, they started booing our national anthem at major sporting events with American teams.
That's court here in City Hall.
Okay. We crossed the border and met Canadians who told us they won't even step foot in the United States, even if the two countries eventually come to a new deal.
That would be nice for the economy in the country, but I still personally won't go over there. No, not as long as he's in power. No. I'll keep my money in Canada.
I personally don't feel respected. Canadians don't feel respected.
It's become a movement here. Elbows up, they call it.
Elbows out. Elbows up.
A phrase from the ice rink telling hockey players to raise their elbows and fight back. And it's become a rallying cry against America's tariffs. And nowhere in America are they feeling those Canadian elbows more than in small towns we visited at the border.
How has business been since January?
Sucked. It sucks. Yeah, this is my worst year ever.
At Ann's Diner in Port Huron, Michigan, she's no longer seeing the carloads of Canadians who used to cross the bridge and eat breakfast before shopping at American malls.
Like the ones that used to come in every single day. I don't see them no more.
You don't see them?
No. We get a lot of French Canadians in here, so as soon as you hear that accent, you know they're French Canadian. But I have not seen a French Canadian in here all summer, and we are a tourist town.
She says this is her worst summer in 30 years.
I think I made more money during COVID than this summer.
America sees more tourists from Canada than any other country, and last year they spent an estimated $20 billion here. But this year, Canadian travel into the U.S. is down, nearly 33% by car and 22% by air, forcing United, Delta, and other airlines to cancel flights. So many Canadian snowbirds are canceling vacations in California that the state is running this ad on Canadian television, hoping to win them back.
Truth is, California just wouldn't be California without Canada.
And at the border towns that depend on this business, Americans are holding rallies, asking Canadians for forgiveness and waving their flag. At the Elite Feet shoe store, Greg Whittakin worries how long his Canadian customers will stay home.
It's hard when we're just a small business like this in a small downtown, just trying to get people to come out and shop. We've seen a downtick in Canadian customers for sure, yeah, but hopefully they're going to come back.
Right on the other side of the border, this duty-free shop in Canada is hurting too. This is where Canadians shop for deals on their way into the States, and when we went, the place was empty.
Has there been permanent damage done, in your opinion?
I hope not. I really hope not. There's been a deep level of damage emotionally, I think, for everyone, but I think we can repair this because we are very close to our neighbors. Our cultures are very integrated, so I think it can be repaired.
We heard over and over again from Canadians that they love Americans but are feeling disrespected by the fight over tariffs. This mayor in Michigan says she prays every night for business owners in her city and for the fight with Canada to end.
You know, the match was struck over here. It wasn't over there. And
the match was struck over here.
The match was struck over here.
What's your message to Canadians out there on the other side of this river who don't want to step foot in America because of all of this?
Well, my message to them is short and sweet. You're always welcome here on this side of the border. We welcome you. Open arms.
Our thanks to Steve Osunsami. And coming up, Spike Lee on his newest movie and what it was like to collaborate with Denzel Washington again. And look up in the sky, you could just see the northern lights tonight. We'll have all the details. Stay with us. The FDA has a warning about some forms of sunscreen. Southern states may have another chance to see the northern lights and why you may see the word skibbity in the dictionary. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. The FDA sent a warning letter to a company that makes whipped cream-inspired sunscreen, saying it's being sold without proper approval. The vacation brand sunscreens come in colorful bottles and are packaged in pressurized cans, similar to what consumers would see in the whipped cream aisle of the grocery store. The agency warned that while sunscreens can be sold over the counter, the foam and mousse forms, such as the kind the company sells, are not authorized under current regulations. A cargo train carrying coal derailed in North Carolina, blocking the tracks and disrupting passenger train services along the entire East Coast. The 28 overturned coal cars remain on the tracks and cleanup efforts are underway. Authorities have confirmed no injuries, hazardous material leaks, or threats to the surrounding community, but Amtrak services, including routes to and from Raleigh, North Carolina, have been canceled. Officials are investigating the cause of that derailment. The FDA has approved the GLP-1 weight loss drug Wegovy to treat a serious liver disease in adults with excessive scar tissue on the liver. The new approval comes after a phase 3 trial showed Wegovy helped improve liver scarring and resolve symptoms. It adds on to Wegovy's other approved uses like the obesity and to reduce the risk of heart complications. Another dazzling display of northern lights could be visible Monday night with the prediction of a minor geomagnetic storm, according to space weather experts. And some of the northernmost states could witness more displays on Tuesday night. Streaks of pinks and greens may be more visible against the dark canvas. The best times to see the northern lights in the U.S. will be between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. The Cambridge Dictionary is adding more than 6,000 words to its official repository of the English language. Skibbity and tradwife are among the newest words added in the age of social media. Tradwife refers to married mothers who cook, clean, and post their homemaking skills on social media, while the word skibbity has a more ambiguous meaning and can be used contextually to say something is both good or bad. Delulu is also being added to the dictionary, which is short for delusional. One homeowner got quite the shock as a mountain lion strolled through the front door, which was open, of their California home. Jeff Tenney was staying at his mother's home and came face to face with the big cat, who was just around the corner in the dining room. Tenney says he made eye contact with the mountain lion before it darted out the back door. Tenney said after the lion's escape, he went to go check on his dog in the front yard. It turns out his 13-year-old dog Bandit was sunbathing and slept through the whole thing. Spike Lee and Denzel Washington are back together for their 5th team-up. Highest to Lowest is a reimagining of a classic Japanese film, but this time it's set in New York City with a majority black cast. When a music mogul is told his son was kidnapped, he'll do anything to save him, until a twist makes things morally complex. Our Ashan Singh sat down with the prolific director to talk about the latest Spike Lee joint.
And the hard times will come from the good times. The hard times will come from the success. The hard times will come from the money, and the mayhem follows.
Spike Lee, thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Highest to Lowest, congratulations on the new film. One of your earlier classics, She's Gotta Have It, was also inspired by a Kurosawa film.
Some people call me a freak. I hate that word. I don't believe in it. Better yet, I don't believe in labels.
What inspires you so much about Kurosawa's work?
I'm a cinephile, so I'm a student of film, and the script had been going around for a couple of years. It ended up in Denzel's gracious hands. He called me up, said, Spike, I got a script. I want you to read it. And before I hung up the phone, I knew I wanted to do this.
I know what it is to risk everything you have for something that you want. I know what that means, to have nothing and want everything.
This is my personal opinion that Denzel is the greatest living actor today.
What's it like getting the script for such a legendary adaptation of a film and knowing that you're going to be working with Denzel on this?
A blessing. I knew it had to be a reinterpretation, not a remake, where you pay respect to the original, but you flip it. And so it's like we were jazz musicians who have a great American standard. Roger Hammerstein, Sound of Music, Julie Andrews, and just we flip it. But we're very respectful of Kurosawa and also the Kurosawa estate because they had control over who was going to be the director of it.
How do you take a 1968 film from Japan? 1963 film from Japan and make it so New York and so black and still pay respect to the original?
It's not an easy thing to do, but it was what the JOB required. High and low, post-World War II Japan. Toshiro Mifune's character was a shoe executive. That was a big change. Now Denzel's playing a music mogul.
Buying back, stacking his records, it's a lot of money. There's more to life than just making money. It's integrity. There's what you stand for.
When you have a superstar, you give them the ball. So we're all behind Denzel to tell this story. He's Jordan to me.
Right.
And this is our 5th film together. You know what time it is?
Those are just notches in the belt at this point for the two of y'all.
And it's a blessing. Denzel believes in me. He trusts me, and it's mutual.
What's it like for you continuing to tell stories about your city?
The greatest city in the world.
Why is it so important for you to put New York on in this way?
Well, I got to be honest. I wasn't born here. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Moved to Brooklyn when I was like 2 or 3 years old. Public school education. And it's the city where I became a man, matured. And I love this city, love the people in it. Look, not everything's great about this city. If you go back to 1989, Do the Right Thing. We dealt with some deep stuff.
Hey, Sal, how am I gonna brothers on the wall here?
You want brothers on the wall?
Love.
Get your own place. You can do what you want to do.
The love is always going to be there for my hometown.
As much as New York is a character in this film, so is the music.
New mixes of mood music. I need a theme. Theme music. Hey! Wake up, y'all. The king's here.
Got to pay back. You've got classics. You've got A$AP Rocky with some new bangers.
2.
And then you've got a whole score going throughout this film, which really sets the tone and paces this film beautifully. How did you go about choosing the music for this film, and what sort of language did you want it to speak?
I grew up in a house where music was played all the time. And so very early on, even before I became a filmmaker, I knew the power of music. So I just grew with the music, and I stood early on that how music helped tell the story.
How do you want to keep pushing the envelope?
Be true to myself.
What keeps inspiring you?
My students. I see myself when I look at my class. You know, young, talented people who are thinking about their future. So I see myself.
I can't let you go without talking some ball. It seems like the East is wide open. You got the Celtics, they're on a little bit of a down year. How you feeling about the Knicks going into October?
Toward this coming NBA season, I see nothing but orange blue skies.
Spike, congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for having me on. I'm glad you dug the film, too.
No, really did. Grateful for you.
Despite the Boston, New York thing.
Hey, man, you had your own shots through the film for me. I felt like it. I was sitting there watching. I was like, oh, he knows. He knows I'm from Boston. Spike, man, appreciate you
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much.
I got into this by myself. I'm gonna get out of it by myself. Where's my money? I got the 4-pounder sitting right here. Don't try nothing funny.
Our thanks to Ashen and Spike. Highest to Lowest is in select theaters now, and then is going to start streaming on Apple TV Plus on September 5th. Best known for his intense portrayals of villains, including in 2 Superman movies, we are remembering the life and career of actor Terrence Stamp, who died on Sunday at age 87. Here's our Chris Connolly.
You alone will be held responsible by me.
Blessed with one of the most memorable gazes in 20th century cinema, British actor Terrence Stamp could mesmerize movie audiences, whether he was playing the villain General Zod in 1978's Superman and 1980's Superman 2.
Kneel before Zod!
Haunting moviegoers in the 1965 thriller The Collector, or playing the title character in Billy Budd for the 1962 film that served as Stamp's first real introduction to film viewers, earning him an Oscar nomination.
Sail 1 mile off the starboard bow.
Let's be dancing.
Decades later, stealing this shake your groove thing barroom dance scene lock, stock, and pigtails as transgender performer Bernadette in the 1994 Australian hit The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. He'd earned his prowess in the theater. Stamp even played Alfie on Broadway. Stamp worked steadily later in his career, appearing in Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace, as Chancellor Valorum, and more recently, alongside Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston in the 2019 Netflix comedy Murder Mystery.
Who are you?
That face and those eyes, a timeless gift. Terrence Stamp, a movie legend forever.
Our thanks to Chris Connolly. And that's our show for this hour. I'm Juju Chang. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks for streaming with us.